Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos, and I'm still excited by the idea that Irving Berlin's Top Hat is returning to London, and I do hope it's going to include the Push Bicorn song, presumably sung by Beret Manilow. Well, I promised in last week's episode of Musical Talk a few more treats before the year 2025 was through. Our traditional Christmas quiz is going to be coming up very shortly, and that I hope will be considered a treat by anyone who chooses to listen. It's a long tradition here at Musical Talk. But this week we're doing something slightly different. At the end of the year, it's normally traditional to start looking back at what's happened in the last 12 months. But I thought it might be slightly more interesting to look back at what happened 100 years ago. And so today, in this episode, you're going to hear me and fellow presenter Josh Clark as we look at a theatrical newspaper from November 1925 to see what it can tell us about the state of theatre, and particularly musical theatre, 100 years ago in the United Kingdom. Now, the newspaper that we're looking at is the 5th of November 1925 edition of The Stage, which is Britain's foremost theatrical journal. It was originally founded in 1880, and its original title was The Stage Directory, a London and provincial theatrical advertiser. And although it changed its name a year later in 1881 to The Stage, which is the name it still uses today because The Stage is still a newspaper which you can buy and find online, it's still in the 1920s retains the sense of being an advertising newspaper, a classifieds newspaper. And it concentrates much more on connecting people and telling people what they need to know in order to connect with others, i.e. how actors can find theatres or managers, how performers can identify songs that they might want to sing, things like that, rather than news. There are a few articles which are general reviews, or overviews might be a better way of putting it, about world stage. So one edition might have an article about the stage in Vienna, another might have an article about the stage in Paris, another about one in New York. But for the most part, it's not a newspaper that reports what's going on. It's a classified field advertising newspaper, which means it goes down to the very heart of the mechanics of theatre, and indeed musical theatre, 100 years ago. Neither Josh nor myself knew what we were going to find in the newspaper. We had not looked at it in advance. And so you will be joining us as we explore this particular edition from the 5th of November 1925. And I hope that you'll find it as absolutely fascinating as we did. It's a real snapshot of the real-life working profession of the world of theatre and musical theatre from 100 years ago. So let's hear that conversation now. Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Josh, as listeners to Musical Talk will know that you are a man of many talents. You're a composer, you're an excellent reviewer, you are strongly involved in music, you've musically directed and you play keyboards and lots of other musical things, but you also perform. You are, and I quote, merely a player. Now, what does the phrase, all the men and women merely players, mean to you? And is that a corny and horrible way to be talking about what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, I think anything which quotes the bard,
that's right,
is perfectly apposite for a theatrical conversation. So that's good.
So today we're going to do something very strange or unusual, and I hope interesting, certainly a novelty, because we have in front of us a copy of The Stage, the theatrical newspaper, in the United Kingdom, and the date of this particular edition is from the 5th of November 1925, and it cost 4d in the old money. It's also edition 2329, so it's been going on quite some time. But the stage is a back door into the world of theatre, and of course musical theatre. And I thought it might be quite instructive for you and I just to flick through this 1925 edition to see what caught our eye and what insights it might give us about theatre and musical theatre. But I think before we do, can I ask, what are we seeing in front of us?
What are we seeing in front of us? Well, we've got this appropriately yellowing, nay, crumbling.
It is indeed crumbling on your tablecloth, yes.
That's a crumbling newspaper, but the front page for this actually is the front page, isn't it?
It is.
It's not what you would typically expect to find on a front page, certainly these days, because in fact it's perhaps what you'd find towards the back, isn't it? We've got some listings.
It is. I mean, I should say, I don't know if you've ever seen a copy of the Times from the Victorian era, but the Times had classified advertisements on its front page, which is something we wouldn't do anymore, and the Times certainly doesn't do anymore, and you'd have a picture. And the first thing you see, the thing that sticks out, I think, is the name of the newspaper, the stage. The font is curious. What do you make of that?
Yes, well, how would you describe it, really? We've got the ornate ends of the bars that form the letters, haven't we?
It's serif.
So that's it, yes, rather than sans serif, which is without, isn't it? And it's not quite getting towards the Gothic Germanic, but it's a little nod to it.
I agree with that, funny enough. I would exactly describe that as a kind of Gothicization of an Edwardian font. And bearing in mind, 1925 is not so very far away from the Edwardian era, that is. Underneath it is the tagline, "All the men and women merely players," which, as you've identified as being from the Bard. And it tells you at the top, circulation guaranteed to be larger than that of any other dramatic, capital D, or variety, capital V, paper.
And then advertising the stage yearbook.
Twice.
Yes, on either side of the title of the paper there. Orders should be addressed the manager, the stage, Covent Garden.
Now, I don't know what the stage yearbook is, but I assume it says the stage yearbook for 1925, and this is the end of 1925, so that sounds like the publication for the next year. Do you think it's going to be what we think of as Spotlight today, a kind of listing of actors? It seems possible, doesn't it?
Perhaps, or would it be a composite of all of the editions from the year bound together?
Could be, and they certainly did do that, yes, because I'm a fan of the play pictorial, and that comes in volumes. So, yes, that might be it, yes.
But the price of the yearbook is, well, how would you describe this money?
5 shillings.
Where's that shillings?
That's 5 shillings. Or by post, 5 shillings and sixpence.
Okay.
5 and a kick.
Which seems like a pretty good deal, considering the price of this individual copy was
4p.
4p. So,
but I will also make the observation, in 1925, the Radio Times, still with us, as indeed is the stage, was 2p. Right. So it's twice as expensive as the Radio Times.
And how many pages would the Radio Times have?
Well, this clearly says there are 32 pages on the stage. I would have said the Radio Times would have been a similar size, but smaller. It wasn't broadsheet. Right. We should say this is a broadsheet. It's actually more like a Berliner, isn't it?
Well, yes, because when you think of a 1925 broadsheet newspaper, that would be enormous. Quite significantly larger than this.
I mean, you could sleep under it on a park bench.
Indeed.
In 4 years' time when the crash comes.
Yes. And then we've got the listings of, well, really, largely, people begin with M.
Well, actually, I think it's women up to this black bar here, and then it's men.
Right.
And then...
But the sequencing is...
Curious?
Interesting. Does there seem to be a system? I mean, there's lots of M's, but that, as you say, it's Mrs. and it's Mrs.,
It is, yeah. Mrs. Dolly Harmer is the very first name.
Yes, but then Miss Mabel Love beneath, well, you could say those two are alphabetical, but then we get to, before long, Eleanor Darby. So there doesn't seem to be any...
I agree. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it.
No particular system.
Which may seem odd to us, but bearing in mind that you can pay to have your Google search or your online search engine position higher or lower, it could just be that you pay a different tariff to get to the top of the list.
Yes, it could be.
Can I just say, looking at those names, this is the top half of the front page. I think it's actors who are trying to advertise that they are either available or to be available, and what they're in or have been in. And there's some really good examples. There's one that says, for example, Connie Crichton is a comedienne and who's currently at liberty.
And Miss Dolly Harmer is next resting.
Yeah, so she's currently appearing at the Kilburn Empire in Georgie Wood's company, a Christmas show, but you're right, resting. And there's several people I noticed. Mr. George Miller is disengaged.
Yes, as is Mr. J.J. Bartlett. Yes, whereas Mr. Wilfred E. Shine is touring in both the Jeffersons and the Optimist.
Well, that would be one first and then the other, I guess, unless they're both in repertory.
Which it could be.
But what's amazing to me is it's how to get in contact with these people. It really is. If you'd like to hire us, they've either got their representatives. Miss Ella Shields, who was a famous musical star and was appearing in a show called Ideal of Ideals at the time, has given the name of her agents, Reeves and Lamport. No address. Whereas, if you want to contact Mr. George Miller, you can write to him at 10 Delaware Mansions, Maida Vale, W9, which probably is his home address by the sound of it. Couple of musical theatre things leap out. I said I've mentioned Ella Shields already. She was a big name and still is remembered as a musical star of the period. Renee Sutton is appearing in the title role of Sally, which was a big musical at the time. The Belle of New York was an enormous musical at the time, and Johnny Schofield Jr. and, in much smaller print, Irene Wisher appearing in that. And Grace Wilson is touring in No No Nanette by Vincent Youman, that was a big musical in the 20s. And Lucille, which I think is a very early musical that might have a song or two in it from a very young George Gershwin. But there's a name here that I think leaps out at you, isn't there?
Yes, well, I was going to make the connection to... There was an Irene you just mentioned.
Irene Wisher?
Irene Wisher, because there was an Irene in a play called The Dresser by Ronald Harwood, which I'm currently working on. But at the top of the next column over, I think, there's Sir J. Martin Harvey. And that reminded me of reading the little preface to my copy of the Dresser, the foreword, in fact, written by the playwright, who had spent time as Sir Donald Wolfett's dresser for almost 5 years.
Sir Donald Wolfett being a proper British acting knight.
An actor-manager, that, you know, when that role was very significant in the British theatre. But yes, this Sir J. Martin Harvey came up also in the foreword here. I mentioned a few times, but this little anecdote stuck with me. Allow me to read from it. There was two in Wolfett's company, a wonderfully robust actor called Frank G. Cariello, whose greatest professional disappointment was that Martin Harvey, after allowing him to play Laertes on tour, back to Shakespeare,
yes,
recast the part for London. Cariello himself, briefly an actor-manager, was a tireless and witty raconteur with a prodigious memory of theatrical times past. And this was, Harwood tells us, encounters he had with these theatrical men before he himself, Harwood, was 20 years old, and it was these figures who were much in his mind when writing his play The Dresser, which it seems as though was published in the early 1980s.
What's interesting here is that, forgive me, it's interesting how everything connects to everything else. I had the great pleasure of interviewing Simon Callow when he was appearing as Captain Hook at the Richmond Theatre, and he was referring back to seeing Sir Donald Wolfett playing Captain Hook when he was a boy. We've just had Sir Donald Wolfett mentioned here by Ronald Harwood, who's talking about seeing Sir John Martin Harvey, and who is here on this list of available, please hire me, performers and presumably actor managers in this case, on the front page of this November the 5th edition of 1925's The Stage. I think it's amazing that we made this connection immediately, that, you know, you saw that name and you thought, I know that name,
yes,
which I didn't at all.
And then you look down, you see some other sort of theatrical names, and you wonder whether they've got any relation. So, you know, there's Bertram Dench here. Could
Bertram Dench be Dame Judy's distant uncle or something?
You think it's unlikely, but possible. Bertram Dench was principal comedian with Gypsy Love.
Which must be a musical, surely.
Yes, you'd probably think so. There was another which I mentioned, Wheeler Dryden. I mean, Dryden.
Yes.
You know, completely notable.
A theatrical name, I should say.
So what have we got for Wheeler Dryden? Playing Rodney in The Bridge of Distances, New York City. Wheeler Dryden.
And yet, the flip side is there's someone called Leslie Holwood, and you just think there's a Y missing.
Yes, absolutely.
Who was a comedian, by the way, at Liberty. So if you want to hire him in November 1925, you can do so at 21 Burbage Road, Herne Hill, South East 24.
And just before we move on from this section, I just love the wonderfully alliterative Miss Betty Bobbs. Miss Betty Bobbs. Comedy as well. Later Lives of the Dairymaids. Starring... Is that in Paris? It is. The Nouveau Cirque in Paris.
Oh gosh, right.
So, it's a good range of people with different experience at the time, isn't it? Obviously, all looking for the next job.
Absolutely. And sometimes, just one final one for me, there's somebody called Mr. and Mrs. Graham Moffat. Now, that name leaps off the page for me because Graham Moffat was the juvenile actor who appeared with Will Hay in films in the 1930s. But I happen to know this cannot be the same Graham Moffat because in 1925 he would not have been married with a child. And if you look at this, it says Mr. and Mrs. Graham Moffat, and in small print, and Miss Winifred Moffat, who's likely to be a child, appearing in a sketch, I imagine this is called Concealed Bed, which is currently on tour, meaning but that is a family who are doing the variety theatres but would like something else.
So then we dip into the second half of the front page, and it goes to on tour. And we're in smaller print here, aren't we?
We are.
Which is very helpful for both of us, I'm sure. But what have we got here then? So these are works, are they?
I think it's a mixture.
It's a mixture.
Because I can see Charlie's Aunt, which is a play which people... Yeah, you could have seen that at the Lyceum Ipswich.
Wonderful.
Before it goes on to Eastbourne.
Yes, I've played in Charlie's Aunt as well.
Have you?
Lord Fancourt Babberley.
Have you been?
I have, yes, yeah.
I take you back to my earlier comment. Shakespeare was right, and he was talking about you.
Uh-huh.
Whereas, and this is interesting, the British National Opera, a company, the British. So it's not the E&O, this is the B&O, which I'd never heard of.
Not to be confused with the dandy.
But I'm sure many of an actor was dressed as dandy. It's bearing at what it says 2OH. Now, I think that means, November 2nd, so that's what the 2 is. OH is Opera House, Manchester. And there's another company, the Carl Rosa Opera, who have got a long history connected with Gilbert and Sullivan. I wonder if D'Oyly Carte's around here, then.
Oh, that's
D'Oyly Carte Opera.
2 listings.
So they're at the Lyceum in Edinburgh, presumably for 2 weeks, because it's listed twice.
And just immediately above them, Charles Duran, who was another one mentioned in the foreword by Ronald Harwood there.
You're joking?
Charles Duran, no, absolutely right. There's big names in the front page of this.
But Charles Duran is is he a company appearing in Croydon at the Pleasure Gardens? Oh no, he's appearing at Croydon and then the Pleasure Gardens in Folkestone. Or is there a play called Charles Duran? No, it can't be a play called Charles Duran because it's Duran, Charles. Well, so he must be an actor-manager.
Well, absolutely right, and I refer back to this foreword, which is coming in very useful. Ronald Harwood tells us that he was fortunate when young to meet Sir John Martin Harvey's stage manager and held 2 long conversations with Charles Duran, the actor-manager who gave Donald Wolfett his first job.
You're right. Forgive me, this is immediately fascinating. So we mentioned the Belle of New York, a famous American musical. You could see that in Doncaster at the Arcadia Theatre, and then it's going on to Scarborough later on by the look of it.
You mentioned, musical links. We've got not Me and My Girl, but Me and My Gal.
Oh.
Ashton-under-Lyne. So, I mean, would that be some kind of precursor?
Well, I bet it's a musical.
Yes.
Almost any reference to a show with the word girl or gal in it is usually musical. Marguerite is an operetta. What else have we got going on? Oh,
All sorts. I mean, there's Applesauce, Broken Biscuits.
Applesauce, I think, will be a revue.
Yes. That's at the Hippo in Rotherham as well.
The Hippodrome, that'll be, won't it?
Right.
Oh, and not everything's like comedy and light. There's something called Capital and Labour, which you can see at the Metropolitan in Manchester.
Oh, yes. And
the Speckled Band, which is Conan Doyle. That's a Sherlock Holmes. And that's on at the... Now, that says the R, Middlesbrough, so I bet that's the Royal.
Several productions of The Pelican, which I know nothing of, but sounds delightful. The Pelican in the Alhambra, Glasgow, and Coventry at the same time. So
no, I think it's 1 week followed by the next.
Oh, is it? I see.
So actually, we've mentioned No Nanette. So these are tours. So there's a No Nanette's on in Bolton, then St Helens, but it's also on in Wolverhampton, and it also seems to be on in Cardiff. But I did see something that really took my fancy a second ago. We mentioned, here we are. If you were in Swansea on the 2nd of November, you could have seen Primrose. Primrose is the British Gershwin musical. It's the one he came over to Britain to write. And it precedes Lady Be Good, which I think is 1924. So that is a touring version of Primrose, which would have been in London a year or 2 years before this. And while we're on it, The Rat is a play which was turned into a film featuring Ivor Novello, a silent film.
Good. So there's all sorts. And a lovely note at the bottom where managers of touring companies are invited to send their particulars of their tours in. And, of course, this was at a time when people did just have their own little touring companies and would be travelling on the trains on a Sunday.
Absolutely.
Meeting up at Crewe and going off in different directions. And, there wouldn't obviously communications aren't what they are today, are they? Where you can just send it in. So it would have been really important.
By postcard or something, yeah.
Yeah, but it's why it's the front page, isn't it? It's important that people see this information in terms of getting bums on seats, to use that modern phrase.
It is, because the stage isn't just for actors, it is for everyone else involved in the stage industry. Shall we move on to page 2?
Yes. Can we open this without it disintegrating
It's very,
fully?
very delicate. Now. I think we go first to page 3 because it's screaming at us.
Yes. And, we've talked about Gilbert and Sullivan before. It's not quite what we've got here, but the Savoy is the connection.
Yeah.
The Savoy Orpheans Triumph.
Now, can I say, do you know who the Savoy Orpheans are?
No, but I'm looking forward to you telling me.
That's lucky, because I do have the answer. Savoy Orpheans were a British dance band of some renown. In the 1920s, they were under the control of somebody called D'Oyly Summers, and they went under the control of an American by the name of Carol Gibbons, who lived in the United Kingdom all the way through the 20s and 30s. And you got it exactly right. They became, and were already famous, because they were the house band at the Savoy Theatre. And the Savoy Theatre isn't just Gilbert and Sullivan, it's also the theatre, or rather it's the hotel, I should say, because it's a hotel and theatre. They were the house band in the hotel, and they were the hotel closest to Savoy Hill, which is literally just down the road, and that is the BBC's first headquarters. So they were almost the BBC's in-house band, and the BBC had been broadcasting since 1922, so we're 3 years in. So the Savoy Orpheans would have gone from being very, very slightly known to being famous across the nation. But Sue, do carry on.
Well, no, it just took my eye, and this page, is the first that really jumps out, isn't it?
It's an advert, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Full page.
Yes, and page 2 is, feels even smaller again than what was on the front. But we've got a lovely section.
Well, can we say what's the advert on? I think because it's screaming at us, I think we have to say, what are we seeing on page 3?
Seminola. And we're told through an exclamatory, there's no panto complete without them. Now, what's that actually referring to? We've got Feldmanism
is the header,
top
isn't
line,
it?
Yes. Have you got any light to shed on that?
No, I don't.
Right.
I mean, it looks like it's a venue, because it says Feldmanism, 125, 127 and 129 Shaftesbury Avenue, WC2. And it even gives you, if you want to send telegrams, you send it to Humfriv in London.
But look at the bottom, so that top line, Feldmanism. Success goes along with a Feldman song.
So they're song publishers. So my guess will be that Savoy Orpheans have made these songs, published by Feldmans, huge hits. And with the panto season coming up, because in November the panto season starts on the Boxing Day, 26th of December in those days, you're planning your pantomime. I bet Seminola was the hit of 1925, along with all these other songs, which I must say I've never heard of. Yum Tum Tum, Oh Boy What a Girl, All My Dreams Are of You, Normandy,
and Buy Yourself a Broom, brackets, and Sweep Your Troubles Away. Yes, and it's exhorting the reader to follow the lead of this company and feature Feldman's panto stormers in your own production, I presume.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. It says that this is talking about the Savoy Orpheans box in this page. At the famous band's wonderful syncopated concert at Queen's Hall last week. Queen's Hall was bombed in the Second World War and no longer exists, but it was a big concert hall in London. The outstanding hits of the programme were Yum Tum Tum and Panama. The former roused the entire audience to enthusiasm, and the Orpheans and their conductor, Mr. D'Oyly Summers, I was right, were called upon to stand in acknowledgement of the storm of applause which followed their rendering of the great comedy winner. I mean, they were quite verbose, aren't they? It's a good song.
And you're reading it with aplomb.
Thank you very much indeed. Yum Tum Tum, stop the bill, it says. And then in a smaller box again, what the programme said about Yum Tum Tum. So this is a 1925 concert programme telling you about a popular music hit. It has a quaint comic charm and, above all, an insinuating little tune, which you will probably find yourself humming tonight and hear all your friends singing tomorrow. And there's another song, it seems to like Panama. This is what that 1925 concert programme said about the song Panama. There are only two fates for a foxtrot tune. It wins or it does not. There does not seem to be much doubt about Panama. Most people will agree that Robert Catcher, brackets the composer, will make the world dance with him.
Wow, a resounding recommendation. And then we turn to the very, very small print on page 2, with a few standout boxes. Mr. Al Morris, this is a wonderful little epithet, mirth provoker, is is entertaining offers for production or panto. But he's obviously paid above the odds for a little standout box there because, Arthur Byron, Rex Ryan, Ernest St. John, all sorts of people have got very, very small sections there. But it's a continuation of the front, isn't it, really? With just a bit more detail, we've got a section for vocalists, instrumentalists, and, my goodness, gentlemen. A short column. But also what strikes me here is Edinburgh. We've just got to fold a little piece back into place there. From our own correspondent, what have we got here? The D'Oyly Carte Company.
Oh, tell me more.
We've come upon it there. Have the theatre, and this is the Lyceum in Edinburgh, booked up for the fortnight. Right, so perhaps that's informing other people, don't bother, because they've got it booked for a few weeks.
But isn't it interesting, because it doesn't tell you what the actual Gilbert and Sullivan is?
No,
it would certainly be a Gilbert and Sullivan, presumably, or at least a Savoy opera in the broadest sense. But
yes.
It's just D'Oyly Carte's enough, isn't it? D'Oyly Carte is selling it. They don't mention Gilbert, they don't mention Sullivan, they don't mention the name of the show.
And whereas at the Theatre Royal in Edinburgh, there's Whiz, an HS production of excellent quality with quite a number of good comedians and vocalists. And there's quite a bit of detail there. At the King's Theatre, there's the Leith Opera Company.
Well, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And they recently did Gypsy Love. I think we mentioned that previously. And then the Empire, they've got some variety on, which we're told is a pleasant change this week. So sorry about whoever was on previously. But nice to have that little specific Edinburgh section.
Funnily enough, that Empire has another sentence. It says, Hetty King is a very welcome visitor. Hetty King was a very early... Well, she was a turn-of-the-century music hall star, and she was what we would now call a drag king. So she would dress up as a man and sing songs about being in the armed forces in some way. So, and she's a name that still survived.
It's quite nice as well to see that some things never change, because even in 1925, one of the largest typefaces here is the words emboldened income tax. Just reminding everyone to submit their return. So that's reassuring, isn't it?
Well, I suppose actors are freelance, aren't they?
Yes, exactly.
They have to pay tax like anyone else.
But also there is advice here to claim some free insurance, some free legal and medical specialist advice. So plenty available. Shall we?
I think we must
turn over.
So we're moving to page
4 and 5.
We are song notes. So this is news, I think.
Yes, it seems like it.
Actually,
a combination, because we've got Leeds here in a similar way to Edinburgh previously.
Well, let's have a look at what's interesting about the thing called song notes is it's all in typeface, very narrow typeface, and it's got the name of publishers. So we've identified Feldman as a publisher, and they've got a section in here. I think Keith Prowse is pretty famous. Francis and Day are pretty famous as publishers. I hadn't heard of Daruski, but just reading Daruski's entry here, it says, amongst pantomime songs now in preparation, 2 Daruski ballads stand out as successes. One is Wonder Why Foxtrot, which has found favour in many singers already, and the other is a waltz song, Tumble Down Dreams, which has been sung by Mary Blanche, and all her recent arrangements will be used during pantomime engagement at Liverpool. There we are. Right, and here's 2 wonderful ones. Other comedy songs you might want to hear in this pantomime season are Yes, I Don't Think So, and Do Kippers Swim Folded or Flat?
Well, we'll have to go back in time to find out, to that eternal conundrum. On the opposite page, there's another advertisement advertising band parts for... it's clearly panto season, isn't it? Well, it was November, so everyone's getting ready.
Yes.
And then we've got Francis and Day's universal hit, I'll See You in My Dreams, with a little section of the first page of that song. We've got the music, haven't we?
We have.
A vocal line there.
Written, funnily, by Isham Jones, he's the composer, and Gus Kahn, a famous lyricist. Do you know the song I'll See You in My Dreams?
No, but I was just tracking along with the notes that were written there.
Do you want to have a crack at it? Because I know the song.
Well, no, thank you. That's very kind. I wouldn't wish that on our listeners.
Well, I won't sing it, but it goes something like, I'll see you in my dreams.
Yes, that's quite right.
I'll hold you in my dreams. I'm not a terribly good singer, but you get the idea.
I'm following the music.
That is, bum, 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 bum. Something like that.
Out of my arms, still I feel the thrill of your charms. Something like that.
And then back to anyway, there we are.
Yes.
I'll See You in My Dreams is a classic gold standard That is a genuine Francis and Dave's universal hit, because I know this song in 100 years later.
Wow.
I think that's amazing.
That's very good.
Can I say, it's got a lovely tag. It's a cinch for panto principles, but the word cinch is in speech marks, meaning this is slang, probably American slang.
And somebody presumably said it.
Yeah. And on the left-hand side, there's a song called Every Sunday Afternoon, which I'm sorry I don't know.
I'm sure that's fine.
But it's played by Jack Hilton and his band, and he was a big band in the 20s and 30s, but Jack Hilton was also a proper impresario in the British show business. So he would run variety theatres. And it says sung by Leighton and Johnston, who were, I think Leighton and Johnston were an unusual thing at the time in British theatrical culture. They were a black comedy double act.
Right. So, like you say, there's plenty in here that is recognisable.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So, on we go. 6 and 7. Oh, it really is Panto season. So, the star song for Panto is... Any guesses? If you knew Susie like I know Susie, everybody's sweetheart. And who sings this?
Ella Shields.
And all the stars.
And all the stars. It does actually say
stars.
sung by all the stars, but the list of stars includes Ella Shields, who was advertising on the front cover, and Hetty King, who was mentioned as being available in one of those Scottish performing sings places. By the way, Sophie Tucker is listed here, and she's very famous. Also, Cyril Ritchard, who's actually more famous now in America than he is in Britain, but he was a great British reviewist, a review artist. Other songs are listed, and this is Keith Prowse advertising this, the House of International Hits, he says, at 42 to 43 Poland Street, is Alabama Bound, which I've heard Bing Crosby singing, I'm Alabama Bound, there'll be no heebie-jeebies hanging around. I've just paid the meanest ticket man on earth all I'm worth to get my tootsies in an upper berth.
Wonderful.
If that doesn't sound like a song from the 20s, what does it? Collegiate is an American song because there's a huge subsection of songs from the 20s referencing university life in America, varsity life, which came over. And it says, funny, 3 exclamation marks, it's a riot.
And I was just being drawn up here, being a man of the provinces down in Plymouth.
Oh, yes.
To the provinces section. And somebody not looking particularly happy about it, but, that's got to get some theatre as well.
There's a little cartoon.
Yes.
But it's the cartoon of the 2 masks of drama and comedy, isn't it?
Yes.
So.
But, the unhappy one is certainly foregrounded there, isn't it?
It is, actually. That's quite.
But I was again drawn, just going back to the dresser, there's a moment in there where Sir is, or in fact, no, it's the dresser, Norman, is not particularly enamoured with the thought of returning to Colwyn Bay.
Oh.
And here we are.
What would he be facing in 1925?
Well, right now, variety is still proving an attraction at this theatre. This week's company include the 3 Morellis, gymnasts Astor and Astoria, who give an entertaining juggling act, Selenian Lady in a mixture of art and romance, and Henri, equilibrist.
An equilibrist.
Equilibrist.
Is, I think, an acrobat. Someone who balances.
Makes sense, yes. Umar and Lena, illusionists. El Rey, ventriloquist. Ivor, violinist. And Deban, in a potpourri. And the mind boggles.
I assume he's not standing in a potpourri.
Goodness me. But that's a nice little section here, isn't it? Because... the theatre can be very London-centric, but here we're from Aldershot to Bootle and everything in between.
I really want to mention some more songs. They really, every page has got an advert here for songs. So, smashing successes for Panto from Campbell Connolly and Company from 16 Tottenham Court Road in London. Now, there's a list of songs. Where is that girl who was stolen from me? Fine, never heard of that. Oh, darling, do say yes. Not heard that. But I've heard of Chick, 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 Chicken, Lay a Little Egg for Me.
Yes, so have I.
That's still with us. It says, sung by Billy Leonard and Nora Delaney, the great novelty children's chorus song. And here's something that really speaks of this newfangled flying in 1925. I'm an airman, exclamation mark, brackets, and I fly, 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 fly. But Tokyo is listed here, spelt Tokio, which is the way they used to spell it at the time. The Supreme Oriental Song Sina, it says here. But that is still very occasionally played today by 1920s revivalist jazz groups. But I want to draw your particular attention to this, which I think you ought to read out here, Josh, if I may.
Well, this one here?
Yeah.
Our 11th hour sensation for everybody. She showed him this, she showed him that, brackets, she showed him the way to go home. Yes, well,
so that's saucy, isn't it? She showed him this and she showed him that.
Yeah.
She showed him the way to
and
go
we're told, get onto it, don't miss it. This chorus will sweep the country from end to end. Well, there you are.
Can I say, and it says here, it was sung by the Versatile Three, which within the context of the slightly saucy sexual nature of that, tells me a bit more about their private life than perhaps they were offering.
Yes.
But look, other hits, Show Me the Way to Go Home. That's a very famous song.
Yes. There's perhaps more in here that's recognisable than we might have anticipated. So on to pages 8 and 9. We're carrying on with the provinces. We're up to Galashiels and Plymouth. Shall we see what's going on?
Plymouth is your baby.
Forgive me, dear listeners here, but an enthusiastic house on Monday gave a cordial reception to A Greek Slave, presented by Mrs. R.H. Wagner's Amateur Operatic Society. Well, that's wonderful. And it's going on. There's some repertory here as well. Belladonna staged for the second week. And at the Grand, the Plymouth Grand, which, forgive me, is mentioned in The Dresser by Ronald Harwood. And Sir is not happy that the Grand was bombed because the play itself is
set in the Second
during the
World War,
Blitz.
isn't it?
Yes. But in the 1920s, it was still going strong. And volumes in 20 chapters was being presented, with its bright humour and smart dancing, as presented by Ray Brothers for the first time in Plymouth. Arthur, go on.
I was going to say, it must be a review. Yeah.
Now, this is a wonderful, damning with faint praise, perhaps. Arthur Forbes does the fun-making. Others who contribute acceptably to this lively show are, I wouldn't do them the disgrace of reading them out, but...
I don't think they're going to write in.
No, perhaps. But the burning question, Thos, is...
where does the candlelight go when you blow it out? This is yet another advertisement for a comedy song. Funnily enough, it doesn't actually mention pantomime on this time, but it's very clearly a pantomime-style song. It says here, this comedy song, Foxtrot, will be the flaming riot, in speech marks, of every pantomime. But I think my favourite bit, this is by Larian or Lorraine and Company at 11 Newman Street, Oxford Street, is the little paragraph at the bottom. We gave you your big winner last year in Oggo Foggo. So now fan the flames of success by featuring Where Does the Candlelight Go?
And then we're faced with another full-page advertisement for Sunny Havana, which is another song, surely. Yes, indeed, a Wright song from the Wright firm, it seems to be, the Lawrence Wright Music Company.
Based in Denmark Street, which is still known as Britain's Timpan Alley. And
some wonderful kind of handwritten alliteration, or sorry, italicisation. It's marvellous how he finds them, which is a very kind of the time way of expressing oneself, isn't it?
What is striking about this advertisement is the fact that actually the page is black and the text has been printed for the most part in white, except for the illustration of a playing card or a presenting card, a visiting card, which there's an illustration of a hand holding a card, and the card itself is white with big black letters on it saying Sunny Havana, which is the name of the song.
I do like how they've sort of made this a little bit exclusive as well, because if you want a professional copy, you're invited to send to, it's like...
2 shillings.
2 shillings for pro copies, but in brackets, for bona fide pros only. So
isn't that interesting? I suppose what you do to make money in this, you get your professional performers to sing the song in a show. It takes off, and then you sell the cheap copies later on to the punters who want to sing it and play it at home.
Now 10 and 11.
Well, more adverts. Page 10 says calls for next week. So this is presumably shows that you might want to advertise for. So I'm assuming this is a audition call for example, the Hamilton Hippodrome, Hamilton being in Scotland, looks like it's doing advertisements for magical moments. And the Ipswich Hippodrome, you could appear in Henry Lutinger's Cupid Whispers, should you be so minded.
Right. And what stands out to me here, because it's been a very pantomime-heavy publication so far, has been this rather large note that Miss Nellie Wallace is not appearing in pantomime this season. But I'm just interested by the way they phrased this in the 1920s compared with how it might be dealt with in the 2020s. Miss Nellie Wallace, acting on medical advice, and owing to her recent breakdown...
Goodness.
I mean, what a way to come out with it. Will not be appearing in pantomime. But she does thank Julian Wiley Esquire for postponing, and thanks somebody else,
Charles
Gulliver Esquire, for the offer of the played in pantomime. But I must press upon everyone, she is not appearing.
But isn't that strange? I assume the thinking behind that is, look, I'm usually a big panto
Yes.
name. I'm not in it this year. I have not retired.
Yes.
There is a reason. But
Yes.
you're right, I'm not sure that I would go to advertisement and say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not currently available because of my breakdown.
Yes, interesting way of phrasing it, really, isn't it? And then we've got a whole page of the variety stage, and all sorts of names here.
Well, yeah. Now, they've got bigger typeface, haven't they? These are big names. And how many of these do you recognise? There's a few here that I know.
Very few, to be honest. Very few. No.
Well, let me give you a couple that leap out at me, if I may.
Well, we've got Miss Hetty King again for the
We
third
have.
time. Yes.
And she's still in the Empire, Edinburgh. So, I mean, you can cross-reference this, and it's all true. You've got the name of her agents, though, so you can write to her care of IVTA. I bet that's Independent Variety Something Association Limited, 3 Leicester Street, Leicester Square. The other names that leap off at me, very big name, Rob Wilton. Rob Wilton was going... He lasted into the 40s. He's famous for doing a sketch of these slightly feeble men. So there's one where he plays a sketch where he runs a fire station and a woman runs in, my house is on fire, send for the fire brigade. He says, oh, a fire, you say. Do you know, that's the very kind of a thing we try to avoid. Leslie Henson, variety stage performer, but also he was a comic, so he would appear in He would appear in the comic role in musicals as well at the time. Harry Tate, famously a Scotsman. I heard a great story about that the other day. When he died in the early 1940s, Rob Wilton and a very old variety actor who was in his 80s, and I can't remember the name of him, unfortunately, but he's the man who made the song The Man Who Broke the Bank in Monte Carlo, famous. Charles Coburn, something's that. Anyway, Charles Coburn was 84, and they were standing around the grave of Harry Tate, and Rob Wilton turned to Charles and he said, Charles, how old are you? And he said, I'm 84. And he said, it's barely worth your going home.
Yes, very good.
Florrie Ford. Florrie Ford sang My Old Man Said Follow the Van, amongst others.
There's an interesting one at the bottom here. Eric Victor, The Unique Lady.
Question mark.
And then we've got many thanks to all for congratulations on successful lawsuit.
No further details.
No. That's wonderful stuff. Bobby DeLise, the wonderful male prima donna.
Gorgeous Parisian gowns, it adds.
Yes.
So do we think that's a female impersonator?
Perhaps.
And Master David Weir, the cleverest of all boy comedians.
No vacancies.
How interesting. Can I just briefly, before we go over, there's an advertisement of a forthcoming comedy review with music by Louis Jerome and it doesn't say who the lyrics are by, interestingly. But appearing in it are people like Frank O'Brien, Bud Ritchie, Harry Roxbury and Janice Hart. But it's the smaller names which interest me, and you'll see why. It says, coming in February 1926, it features the Leander Syncopated Singers, the Charleston Band, if you want something to represent the mid-20s, you've got nothing better, Les Premières, etc., etc., etc. So they were a dancing group, I think. But, and this is my favourite, the 16 Bobbed Beauty Babies.
Yes, goodness, with no additional information. Now we're getting into some detail here, aren't we? So we've got the variety stage. So this is largely London, actually, isn't it? Looking around,
yes.
And yeah, just little reports. Well, a bit of both. There's some previews and there's some reviews. There's a little account here of a motor accident. On Saturday night, the motor car in which Gladys Stanley and her understudy in the roundabout, Phyllis Ferguson, were travelling home to Kensington, came into a collision with another car between Barnes and Hammersmith Bridge and was wrecked.
Oh, no.
The two ladies and the chauffeur were taken into an adjacent doctor's house where the ladies' wounds were dressed, the driver being ordered to hospital. Well, there we are, but her stitches will prevent her reappearance for some time. So, yes, again, don't go and see that.
But look, there's more to this story. Poor old Miss Stanley. It says here, on Monday night, so this is after the Saturday night when the accident occurred, on Monday night, Miss Stanley's second understudy, Miss de Lacy, appeared in the roundabouts at the New Cross Empire with satisfactory results. But subsequently, she was taken ill, and her place was filled by Emmy Massey. well, rather splendidly, with somebody called Joan Collin, singular, to assist in some of Miss Stanley's parts.
I mean, clearly it was a dangerous time because there's a little piece entitled Fred Barnes' Mishap. And he was driving from Cardiff to London on Sunday when a tyre of his motor car burst outside Oxford, causing the car to swing round and run into a hedge. They all escaped serious injury, and Mr. Barnes appeared on Monday at the Stratford Empire.
So all was well.
Yes. Oh, it's just really interesting to see what gets mentioned, isn't it? The many friends of Harry Norris will regret to hear that he is laid up with a chill. He was taken ill last weekend, but though he managed to get to his office on Tuesday morning, he had to return home. I mean, well, thanks very much.
What news?
They had to fill a little space here, didn't they?
What news, my lord?
My goodness.
Can I say, for charity, it says Mr. J.A. Webb is doing all that is humanly possible. That's quite a lot, by the way.
Yeah.
To ensure that the success of next Sunday evening's performance at the Victoria Palace in aid of the Balham and Tooting Day nurseries. A programme of 16 turns has been arranged with the definite assurance that every artist will appear. The list embracing Jack Hilton and his band, May Henderson, and the Gresham Singers, Scott and Whaley, and many, many others. And there's a sketch called Pick Me Up. So strong a programme should attract a bumper house.
Well, I mean, they're certainly doing their bit for advertising here. And there's this great illustration in the centre of the page, isn't there?
It's a cartoon, really.
The Margate Peddlers on Tour. Got the Convicts Opera, a Spige and Fly episode. Yes, we've got Long, Lean and Lanky. It's just little cartoons of the variety acts, isn't it?
Yes. Ethel Revenell and Gracie West. Revenell and West were a female double act which appeared in the 20s and 30s. And into the 40s, they do appear in at least one or two British comedy films. And the comedy is essentially that Ethel Revenell is a very unusually shaped woman. She's very tall, very angular, very sharp, and therefore looks a little bit strange. She looks elongated, and that's essentially their comic stuff. But it's interesting that they're getting, they're big enough names here to be featured in what would be a called editorial cartoon.
And we've spoken on Musical Talk before about ticket prices, haven't we, for musical shows? And Mr. R.H. Gillespie was due to read a paper on the subject of theatre prices at the Gallery First Nighters Club on Sunday. So for 100 years, pricing has been discussed.
Well, can we play one more thing then here? Because it says LCC and licensing, that's the London County Council. Tomorrow, Friday in brackets, and on Saturday if necessary, the Theatre and Music Halls Committee of the London County Council will meet at the County Hall, Westminster Bridge, that's still there, to hear applications in respect of 943 applications for music and dancing, stage plays and kinematograph licences for halls in the County of London, reporting their findings to the full council later. The vast majority of the applications are unopposed and will probably be granted without any discussion. 17 London music halls, including the Stoll, Moss and Gulliver suburban houses, the London Coliseum and the Kennington, are applying for the removal of the restrictions which prevents the sale of intoxicants, except when the premises are used for stage plays. And once again, they will find their only opposition coming from a temperance organisation, the members of which consider that the sale of intoxicating drink is not necessary or desirable in a place of public entertainment.
There we have it.
Which is pretty much the story of Guys and Dolls.
Yeah, well, very good. Now, we've got a double-page spread now of cases in court, and then back to the provincials. But there's a lot of detail here, isn't there? A few more advertisements. One which I think someone on the previous page could have done with: Pond's Vanishing and Cold Creams to soothe and smooth your skin. And then another thing for the Margate Peddlers,
who we saw the advert for.
Saw, yes.
But there's one thing that leaks out here. There's a page called Cases in Court. And the third one is Hay versus Wilmer. And it says here, the motion by William Thomas Hay against George Wilmer and Alfred Garcia relating to the production of a dramatic sketch entitled The Fourth Form at St Michael's was before Mr. Justice Romer in the Chancery Division on Friday. Now, this isn't musical theatre, but this is Will Hay, who in the 1930s was Britain's second most successful film comedian after George Formby. He was a huge name on stage in the musicals and in British cinema. And it seems amazing to me that here's the details of a case of this, a case that he's taken out. And I'll tell you why. It goes on to explain that it was his sketch, it's Will Hay's sketch, and these other two people were performing it without copyright. Stolen material.
All right.
Yeah, please do.
Yes. Because we're at the heart of the publication now. Oh, look at this. A whole section on chit-chat.
Which I assume is gossip, is it?
Yes, essentially. I wonder what jumps out at us here. Well, I mean, it's just much of the same. This time, Mr. Fred Bowyer, his many friends will be pleased to know that after severe bouts with influenza and pneumonia, he and his wife are now on the mend. I mean, you've really got to go some to find that, though, in this, haven't you?
Well, I like this. We Moderns. On the occasion of the 100th performance of We Moderns on Tuesday next at the Fortune, Mr. Israel Zangwill, which is a name to conjure with, will present each member of the audience with a souvenir edition of the play, whether they want it or not.
But we do have Sir John Martin Harvey, again, he of the front page and the dresser, unveiled on Saturday at Irving House, Kenton Mandeville, a bronze tablet recording that the house was Sir Henry Irving's birthplace. And we've got the blue plaques these days, haven't we? Which commemorate that sort of thing. But yes, Sir Martin Harvey was unveiling one of those birthplace items at the time.
Here's something that's interesting in Gilbert and Sullivan history, because it's the alternative to Gilbert and Sullivan. Dorothy is sometimes identified as the first non-operetta musical written in Britain. And it was written by Alfred Chellier, who worked with with Sullivan in particular. But and I think it's something like 1894, Dorothy. It was an enormous success. And at that time, Gilbert and Sullivan was still coming up to the Grand Duke, and there was a real sense that things were moving on, and they were aware of it too. This is 1925, this newspaper, and there's a paragraph about Dorothy. Which is this musical, which is a sort of a rival and the beginning of musical theatre in some sense. It's an important work anyway. And it says here, it was remembered that it originally arrived hampered with a very poor book, but the free hand given to Arthur Williams really had a great deal to do with its survival, and the fact that it was rescued from the Gaiety by an accountant named H.J. Leslie is due to the fact that Leslie was an amateur musician and admired the music of Dorothy for its own sake. He also saw that there were weak points in the cast. This is quite a blunt review of a show, in fairness, which was over 25 years beforehand. It's interesting that Dorothy is still remembered in 1925, in a way it isn't now, really.
There's a little piece in Dispatches regarding a Francis Nielsen, who the writer is supposed to have been too long away from the London stage to write a play for modern use and get away with it. So he'd written a comedy which had been rehearsed for the last month, The Desire for Change, and this writer believes that to rehearse a play for a month as a comedy and then in a single day endeavour to change it into a farce is asking for it. The farce requires more rehearsing than any other form of play I know. Besides, here's a connection, it is only in a musical play that anything may be done to alter an adverse verdict after the first night. But this is my favourite part here. One would have thought that Nielsen would have realised this, but as the rumour has it that his wife is the proud possessor of 12... that looks like £12 million to me. Then in brackets, what a lot of noughts. I don't suppose the result matters much to him either way. Now, I was hesitating over 12 million because that seems like an extraordinary amount for 1925. But it does seem to be. There's 6 noughts there, aren't there?
Yes, it must have happened.
Yes. So there we are. It is only the artists who will worry about the brevity of their engagements unless Nielsen stages some of the other dozen plays he's said to have written. And then the final reflection, ours always was a strange business, hence, I suppose, its fascination.
I love the idea that he's got a rich wife, so it doesn't really matter.
Yes. All right, look at this wonderful cartoony image of the Right Reverend Bishop Talbot, President of the Actors' Church Union. And we seem to be onto the London theatres and the British Drama League's annual conference in Birmingham. So there is, look, a summary of all of the London theatres here, and then slightly more expanded dispatches around the rest of the page.
There's something that leaps out here, but it's by accident. It says in the London theatres there's one called the Oxford. And it says, on Wednesday 28th of October 1925 was presented here a musical show by Bruce Barnsfather entitled Carry On Sergeant, which of course in this day and age is the name of the very first Carry On film. But it goes on to say that this fairly effective continuation of The Better Ole, with Old Bill once more as protagonist, so it's a sequel, is not styled a review, perhaps because it has the basis of a plot more substantial and less unskillfully worked out, than has become the rule for such amorphous productions.
And there's a little piece here about an invitation which was accepted to send a representative group of English community players to take part in the New York Little Theatre Tournament next spring. But the debate was all about what kind of play they should put on. That it should be universal rather than British. And eventually they've gone back and forth and decided they wanted to have some kind of biblical play on, in which the character Jesus Christ was included, but the kind of thinking was that the Americans would have to relax some censorship laws in order to have that take place.
That's interesting.
The argument of Mr. Davis Grantham was that the censorship should be abolished and that the resolution should be regarded as a preliminary for further action. So that's kind of insinuating that if we relax things for this particular production, then maybe that will leave the door open to keep such relaxations in place. But that's an interesting little thing, isn't it?
Well, it tells you a difference between Broadway and the West End at that stage.
Right, well, where are we up to here? Concerts, entertainment notes, and we're back into advertisements, really, aren't we?
Yes, all over the place.
Of a more general fashion. First-class versatile comedian required for a concert party, and bric-a-brac for sale. So,
but there's something that leaps out at me, unfortunately, because I don't think you would name your group of variety artists this way now. I see that George V. Kelly is presenting The Queers, a group established in 1915, still doing nicely. A consistent success, the results of many years' experience. 6 real artists, including Len Charlesworth, comedian dancer, Pearl Gorvin, male impersonator, Cran King, Lieutenant Commander, it says here. So this is So obviously, Cran King was in the First World War, dancer and magician by this stage. Eva Densham, soprano. Irene Day, pianiste with a E on the end of it. And George V. Kelly, who I remember was the producer of this show, is a comedian. But that's The Queers, in case you're interested.
Yes, well, there you are. But I'm sure, they would have had at least equal success with Harry Leslie's famous 7 Nobodies, who do seem to be vacant for the foreseeable. So it's a real shame for them. But beneath that, Max Supremes. There's got to be something in how you market yourself, haven't there? You've got Max Supremes, the winners, and then, yes, the Nobodies. So there you are. Shall we?
I think we should. New page.
Over we go. The American stage.
And our first photographs.
That is true.
So we're on page 22 now, and it's taken this long to get as far as 2 photographs of the show The Enemy, which is on at Times Square, New York.
Which is nice, because facing it opposite is another little cartoon, which obviously is much easier to publish in these times, isn't it? Yeah, I feel like the further we get into this now, we've had dedicated pages to advertisements and to listings, and now everything's just kind of all being put together, isn't it? Kind of whatever was left over, it almost feels like now.
Oddly enough, it feels like bits and pieces and bric-a-brac. Yes. There's still lots of advertisements.
Oh, and more to come. I mean, I've just seen what's coming next, a whole double-page spread of them.
So these are the names of shows.
Broken Biscuits, Hanky Panky. You mentioned Marguerite earlier.
I did. Oh, it's a jazz review. There we are. Okay.
I wonder, is there anything which has survived to today? I mean, well, Aladdin's there, look. So it's the pantomimes at the top here, isn't it? Yeah. We've got 3 bags full, Mother Goose, branded as a real pantomime. So that's very good.
What that means.
Yes. It's all sorts of things. Laughs for Sale, which is a musical comedy.
Yes. I just wish there were more detail.
Yes. Well, look at this one. Mr. Ken of Kentucky, Mr. Ken of Kentucky, Mr. Ken of Kentucky. Specially written for Mr. Ken of Kentucky.
You couldn't make this up.
By Dick Batch. So,
well, there's an unfortunate name.
How about it? I don't really know what that is advertising, but it certainly puts the phrase in your mind.
But there's a bit of social history going on here. Bearing in mind in 1926 we'll see the first and only general strike in the United Kingdom, and there's a certain amount of unemployment going on in the 1920s. Isn't it interesting? There's a comedy review called Drawing the Dole at the Bedford, which is the big music hall that was in Camden. It says it's drawn over 18,000 patrons who paid for admission at the Empire Bristol last week. So it's saying, look, we're already a success. But I think that tells you something about the era in which we're looking.
Now, Tess of the D'Urbervilles is given top billing on page 27, which sounds marvellous. Was this going to be a spring tour at the Garrick? And then
no, it's starting at the Garrick
and then touring after that, that's right. And then we've got wanted theatres, wanted companies, wanted artists. So, yes, this is putting out appeals, isn't it? Wanted theatres seems like an interesting thought. So is this a company looking for somewhere to stage? Well, yes. It is, yes. Wanted theatres for repertoire or stock, 1, 2, 4 or 8 weeks or indefinite period, over 100 high-class plays and dramas to choose from. So yes, essentially, give us a home and we'll put on some shows for you.
And yet, on this one, and wanted companies, it says is wanted known musical comedy or big box office attraction, obviously, for Scotland. between December the 28th and the 4th of January. So it's just 1 week, which would be if you're putting on a big musical just for 1 week, it seems a bit much, doesn't it? But
it's wonderful that a yodeler is wanted, capable of feeding and small character parts.
That'd be comedy feeding.
Yes,
you feed
feeding
people.
lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, well, that's good, isn't it? I just like the phraseology of some of this, really. Also looking for a good singing juvenile man. I'm sure that's not a comment on his personality, but perhaps it is. There's the Grand Theatre Plymouth once more.
But we're talking pantomime quite a lot, because that's clearly what's coming round. But quite interestingly, look, here's the characters appearing in Dick Whittington. It says, book and lyrics specially written for this production, but doesn't say where it's going, does it?
Not that I can see. No, communications go to Brixton.
They want a first class. They're asking for a first class theatre. But look, it tells you who's in it. So it's not so much the actors that's important, but we know there's Principal Boy, Little Jack, Principal Comedian, Captain and Mate, speciality comedians, Second Boy, Second Girl, Mr. Fitzwarren, speciality dancers. There's a cook, a cat, exceptionally good, it says. Emperor, splendid. He's a baritone, second lead to Mr. Jack Buchanan in another show. We've got a principal girl who's a soubrette, so she's the comedy. A fairy, a beautiful contralto. A speciality toe dancer. It says lieutenant and customs, so that'll be one of the acting roles. There's a male quartet made up of King Rat, Carter, Alderman and Guards. There's a troupe of speciality dancers called the 8 Zero Girls. There's a speciality trained group of the 10 Chorus Ladies. There are 6 Verity Dots who are juveniles. You've got a musical director, Mr. Harry Mills, who spent 2 years looking after the Maid of the Mountains in that capacity. And finally, it's produced by George Bishop. But it's interesting there that you get a sense of, for the first time, a sense of what's in that pantomime. What a big cast.
Absolutely, and looking for somewhere to be. And now we really are getting to the end of this, aren't we? Because we're on to the small print engagements wanted. That every single one begins with the word wanted, and so if you just glance at the page, it's just festooned with large
W's.
Large W's, yes. We understand the principle here, but also it's not just the actors, amateur pupils, managers as well. Wanted a manager.
Can I say here, it says wanted for resident pantomime comedian, soft Yorkshire or Lancashire type. Whatever a soft Yorkshire type is.
And then somewhere to live, apartments.
So these will be digs, I guess, will they?
Absolutely. So we've got London, we've got the provinces.
Well, shall we have a look at Plymouth? See if.
It could well be, couldn't there? Here we are in Plymouth. Mrs. Taylor of 10 Phoenix Street, opposite the stage door of the Palace. Well, Phoenix Street, so it's going to be essentially what's Union Street now. What's this mean? Is that combines? Two combs, bed and sitting room. I guess.
2 combinations?
Yeah, perhaps, and a piano. So that's nice. Plenty of digs in Portsmouth.
Oh, it's 2 combinations of bed and sitting room, so she can put up enough. She's got 2 flats basically.
I see.
Isn't that interesting?
It's nice, and also some advertisement for tuition as well. So we've got Mrs. G.S. Betjeman, who provides rapid methods in improving the quality, power, compass and endurance of the voice. Terms are moderate, whereas Madame Ida Leal requires smart, refined pupils. Well, yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. Good
She
luck.
requires them.
Yes.
What does she require them to do, I wonder?
Indeed. But if you just need instant results, then Maud Evans has got a quick method.
Well, lucky for Maud Evans, I'd say.
Indeed. Shall we get into the miscellaneous?
Yes.
That's often fun. Wanted 2 second-hand fur coats, small.
Lady and gents.
Lady and gents. Carnival novelties. And, oh my goodness, wanted small boy, act page, age 14, apply 12:30.
Gosh.
Wouldn't have that
Totally different world, isn't it? I like the self-locking basket required. Presumably for small boy.
Presumably so. Oh, this is wonderful. Scenery. The best is the cheapest. If you say so.
The second line's quite good as well.
Rubbish is dear at a gift. Well, okay, I'm not sure how effective that is. But we find ourselves going to the back cover. Any predictions?
Advert?
A very large one. Here we go. Take us through it.
Well, we're back to Herman Daruski's music publishing company again. They're in 6 New Compton Street, which is the Soho area. And he's advertising the songs that the company Do Kippers Swim Folded or Flat, which I mentioned earlier. Two songs they got in big typeface, Wonder Why, which is a supreme foxtrot ballad, or Tumble Down Dreams, the great waltz ballad. But some of these are the same advert as we saw earlier.
Yes.
So, yes, I don't think so. We were spoken about already. I'm not sure what a song called Dripping would be. I assume it's about the food stuff. It's a Long Way to Bonnie's Scotland. And given in mind we've just been advertising for a 14-year-old boy, My Best Boy is a song.
And in contrast to earlier, when it was asking for bona fide prose only, the new song When We Were 21 is priced at 2 shillings each. No professionals.
That's really interesting.
But I wonder if I'm misunderstanding this abbreviation of prose. Because I can't understand why they would specifically want non-professional people.
And why would you advertise in the stage?
Yes.
Right, so you might be right. That might be...
Might have misinterpreted the abbreviation, perhaps.
Well, thank you, Josh. I mean, it's been such a lucky dip, a brand hub, really. We have just opened a newspaper that neither of us have seen before, that none of us really knew what the contents were likely to be, and we've just followed our noses. But I want to say it's been absolutely fascinating.
It's been superb, and it really goes to show the difference in the purpose of this kind of publication now, because 100 years ago, this is really almost like the yellow pages of the theatre world.
This
isn't it?
Paper internet.
Yes, there's nothing in there in the way of, barring a few very short columns about theatre prices were discussed, there's nothing about opinion or the state of the theatre or lengthy dives into particular actors. It's listings and it's advertisements. It's the
lukewarm reviews. I think that they're adequate performances.
Yes, and updates on the influenza of someone you might know.
Please don't drive recklessly on to visit one of these actors, because you yourself will have a car crash.
Indeed. But nice that we have found enough recognisable tidbits in there as well to kind of make it, just to form a narrative behind things that we know about today.
And still speak to us 100 years later. Well, Josh, I cannot thank you enough. It's been wonderful exploring 1925 with you. I hope perhaps to do something similar again with you on another occasion. But before you go, I suppose I've got to, beyond thanking you, just ask you one final question, which is, do kippers, do you think, swim folded or flat?
Tune in next time to find out.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Musical Talk. And there we are. That was Josh Clark and me looking at the edition of the Stage newspaper from the 5th of November 1925. And I hope that, like for us, it really opened up the world of theatre and musical theatre a century ago. And just to pick up on a few of the shows or songs that we mentioned in that conversation to give you a little bit more context, the Belle of New York was an enormous hit from the late Victorian era. It opened originally in America in 1897, but oddly enough did rather better in London, whereas it was unable to clock up over 100 performances when it was on Broadway. When it came to London, it landed and it ran for 674 performances. It arrived in London in 1898, and it was the first American musical show to run for more than a year in London. And such was its success and legendary status that it was revived again in 1925. And it's that 1925 revival that you heard referred to in that edition of the Stage. More famous today, perhaps, is No, No, Nanette. But once again, it's a show that was more popular in London than it ever was in America at the time it opened. It originally started on an American tour in 1924, before arriving in Broadway in 1925, where it ran for 321 performances. However, it also opened in London in 1925 and ran for more than twice that. It ran for 665 performances on the London stage. I mentioned the musical Sally. That's actually written by Jerome Kern, and it originally opened in 1925. It's most famous today for introducing the song Look for the Silver Lining, and in 1925 was on a series of national tours across the United Kingdom. The revue Applesauce, also from 1925, was an American revue, and the phrase applesauce refers to the then slang phrase, "Oh, you're completely full of applesauce," when people were puffing themselves up and indeed possibly being economical with the truth. These days, of course, the phrase has been superseded by the much less elegant phrase, "You're full of something else." But that's what you were if you were full of applesauce. so it's a sassy American revue, and these days it's mostly remembered, if it's remembered at all, for introducing a very early work by Rodgers and Hart, one of their earliest big hits, Mountain Greenery, because 1925 was the year that Rodgers and Hart really got going. We heard about Gypsy Love, which is an operetta by Franz Lehár, that originally opened in 1909, and The Dairy Maid, another operetta, opened in 1906. And going back even further than that, we mentioned A Greek Slave, which was a musical about comings and goings, farcically, in a Roman household, which for those of you who know your musical theatre sounds not unlike a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. But in 1898, it was an enormously popular musical, and that was the show that was being revived in 1925. Interestingly, amongst its songs is a song called Topsy Turvy, which we now mostly associate as a description of the work of W.S. Gilbert. But A Greek Slave, whilst being a rumbustious farce, was not from Gilbert's pen. And just briefly, a couple of notes on a couple of songs. Josh mentioned Crewe in relation to railway stations. If you're not British, you won't necessarily know that Crewe was one of our biggest railway interchanges. So much so that it generated a music hall song still known to this day as Oh Mr. Porter, originally written in 1892. Oh Mr. Porter, whatever shall I do? I wanted to go to Birmingham and you've taken me on to Crewe. And of course, it also is the name of a brilliant comic film featuring Will Hay, who we also mentioned in this episode of Musical Talk. And of course I mentioned the music hall song, Do Kippers Swim Folded or Flat? Now, this is a song that's been created out of an old music hall joke anyway, because the question is asked by the comic, do kippers swim folded or flat? And of course the straight feed will give an answer, and of course the joke is that kippers aren't fish at all. They are in fact smoked herrings. So kippers don't swim anywhere. But this has been turned into a song, but it's vanished almost without trace. I can find almost no record of it, but by searching quite a long way onto the internet, I have found someone who recalls some of the lyrics. And so just for completeness, here they are. Does the kipper swim folded or flat? I've often pondered on that. Does it lie on a shelf making eyes at itself, or lie on the sand like a mat? It doesn't swim round, but lies on the ground, just waiting as life ebbs and flows. So don't doze in bed, or you'll wake up instead with both eyes on one side of your nose. And according to the information I have, those are the lyrics from memory, so they may not be absolutely correct, but you get the idea. And you can see why that song was being pushed as a great song for pantomime at Christmas 1925. And finally, a small correction about a song title. You will have heard me refer to something called Oggo Foggo being the great novelty song hit of 1924, the previous year. Well, it turns out there are two things wrong with that. There was a misprint and a mispronunciation. The misprint was that it said Oggo Foggo when it should have said Ogo Pogo, and the mispronunciation was that I said it was Oggo Foggo and it should be pronounced Ogo Pogo. And rather splendidly, if you want to hear this song, this is the novelty hit song from 1924, you can do so. Because on YouTube at the moment, someone has put up the Ogo Pogo, sung by Harry Fay. And you can tell that it's the original recording because it's using the original lyrics from 1924. And it's all about the singer meeting a rather strange, and he describes quaint old man who's wearing old +4s, looking to hunt the Ogo Pogo. And the Ogo Pogo seems to be some kind of legendary beast in this. His mother was an earwig, his father was a whale. I'm going to put a little bit of salt on his tail. So the lyric goes. And then the verse ends by the fact that the Lord Mayor of London wants to put him in the Lord Mayor Show. And the Lord Mayor Show, still going on today, is a parade in London. And so that recording represents the song as originally heard in the music halls in 1924 and across the pantomimes of that Christmas season 24-25. But it was also picked up in America and recorded by a number of people, including the Paul Whiteman Orchestra. Now, he was quite a big name in early jazz circles. He worked with George Gershwin, amongst others. But when he recorded it for the American audience, they changed the lyrics somewhat, and you can find recordings of that, but gone are the references to +4s, the kind of trousers that Tintin wears, and pre-war golfers, and instead of it being the Lord Mayor who wants to put him in a show, in this case it is the hunter saying, and then I will make him the sensation in a Broadway show. So instead of being in a parade in London, the American version pops him, quite rightly, into a Broadway show. So that is the Ogo Pogo. I should just briefly say that the Ogo Pogo is a modern name that's been given only in the 20th century to a legendary monster that lives in a lake, not unlike the Loch Ness Monster is purported to do in Scotland. But it should be said that the name Ogo Pogo is not the name given to the legend by the indigenous population who live by that lake, which is in Canada. It's a real 20th century confection, and it's not absolutely clear if the person who coined it was riffing on the song from 1924 or whether it was just a phrase that got into people's ears. But certainly the 1924 original has nothing to do with the Canadian legend. In fact, it looks rather more like the reverse, whereby that song at least inspired the 20th century commercialisation, because that's what it is, of that Canadian legend. It's amazing to me where the world of musical theatre can lead you. And that is that for this week. I do hope you've enjoyed it, but it has been a very strange and wonderful episode in its own right. It's so wonderful to be able to open a time capsule from 100 years ago. Do join us again next week, or whenever, when there'll be another episode of Musical Talk. But for the time being, this has been an episode of Musical Talk, and I'm Thos Ribbits. Pip pip. This episode of Musical Talk presented by Josh Clark and Thos Ribbits and edited by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2025. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favourite podcasts. And follow us on all the usual social media networks. Because we will eventually be turning the page over, I assume.
Yes.
Halfway is going to be about right.
So I can move these out the way.
Yes, I think that's probably going to be better. We've never done it standing.
No. There we go. So these are flexible paper, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it really
Yeah.
is. I mean, you can see because it was on the cheapest paper. Right. Well, if you're happy, do you need a second to have a quick look over it? Or?
Martin Harvey.
Do you know him?
He's so James Martin Harvey is in the preface to The Dresser.
Oh.
Ronald Harwood's the playwright, isn't he? So yeah, he talks about Martin Harvey and how he was
a proto-Sir?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, you see, this is all immediately. You see, this is why I wanted to do it with you.
Aldershot to Bootle.